Let me
And
just
the wig.
welcome. Yeah,
And the wig.
and away. We need to tell him what happened to you last time.
All right, yes, you can. Or I
While
can.
we were here calling for Miss McClean. Miss McClean, where are you? Where are you? Miss McClean was in another land, fast asleep. I heard from her way after the show was done. After 11, I'm getting ready to go to my mom's here. Just got up.
I was tired. And it was supposed to be a nap, but it turned into sleep.
Yes, I know. But Miss McClean, we're so happy to have you here tonight. And before we go to, we're going to delve in tonight, guys, into the ministerial speech that was given in Parliament today by the Honorable Minister DUGUID. We're going to look at that speech. We have the written version of it, and we're going to go through the speech with you. So we're going to be a little late in the calling in. So we're going to call in tonight. We're going to start calling in at 9:20, just to give us some time to go through the speech. But before you go there, Miss McClean, there is something that I want to touch on tonight. We're going to delve into it a little later. And I know that I believe I can raise this with you because your parents, were proud, Black people, and they did everything to leave a legacy for you and your brothers and sisters, etc. Now I'm hearing about a lot of this compulsory acquisition of land. I want Barbadians to open your ears and hear me. And I literally can hear Nigel Newton in my ears talking about the recolonization of Barbados. Now, I'm getting to understand that there are there's some compulsory acquisition of land that is going on. And often what's happening is to allow these developers, these foreign developers, to be able to put up their hotels or do whatever kind of construction that is needed in this redevelopment of Barbados that we never agreed on. Nobody agreed on it, but that is what they're doing. And it made me wonder. I don't have the facts on this, guys, but it makes me wonder, how did we the land at Trent's that we showed, I don't know if you saw that, Miss McClean, where they're bulldozing the land down. This was even before we were told that the deal was completed. They are bulldozing that land down, and I'm really wondering who that land at Trent's belonged to. I have to wonder, because that land was there for so many years. Was it government land, Miss McClean, or was it private land?
From what I heard, it is private land, and I want to. I will show you why.
It is. You heard that it's private land?
Yeah. In fact, while I was listening to the program, I was reading the ministerial statement, and the Minister DUGUID made reference. I don't call him good because the actions that I'm seeing ain't good at all. So while you can't call the name, you give him the honor of calling him good. We gotta get a little levity in all of this. But I sent a short clip to Dave, and I think if Dave can bring it up, it would help you to explain how I've concluded that it is private land, because they talked about, first of all, it couldn't be government land if it was acquired, because if it were government land, it would be vested.
I see.
In the agency that controls land. So let's say it was government land, but they probably had to vest it in national housing or BTIA or whatever. So I think two things. One, that little clip is something from January, which was carried in the media, would clarify that. So if Dave can bring it up, I sent him an email. I hope he was able to get it.
Yes, I'm sure he will look for it. So in the meantime,
what Minister DUGUID was saying, and I wrote a note here. He said it does not lie comment. Okay, let's play that and listen, so I don't have to read what he said. If
yes,
you can.
Go ahead, Dave, please. Thank you.
New location that we have identified for acquisition now, that would then house the new civic center, does not lie in that 100-year flood line. And it is obviously the policy of this government to move our critical infrastructure out of flood-prone areas and into areas that will be protected. And this is one area that would not be impacted on the 100-year flood line. And I think that in addition to everything else, is critical to the development and by extension, the acquisition that we're now doing. Also, Madam Deputy Speaker, in addition to
no, let finish. It's short.
Okay.
what we will give an opportunity in this area to do is to provide a parking facility. Now, as you know, at the current Civic Center, parking is exceedingly limited.
Okay, that it was short, so that was it. No, as I indicated, he said land for acquisition, and he said two things. He said it did not lie in the 100-year flood line. In other words, they are moving across the street because they figure it is not as flood prone as across on the seaside. Now, the other thing that I noticed in there on when I was looking at the video, it referred to 7.49 hectares of land at Trent's. I converted that 7.49 hectares of land at Trent's to the equivalent. A hectare is 2.471, so I'll just round it to 2.47 acres. Okay, so 7.49 hectares is approximately 18.51 acres of land. 18.51 acres. And that 18.51 acres translates into approximately, write this number down, Marcia, because I sat down, all of this came to me as I was listening to the show and reading the thing when I saw the reference to the size. Now, if it is 7.4 hectares or 18.508 acres, we are talking about 806,217 square feet of land. And
repeat that number,
806,000, not 8,000, 806. 217, 806,217. Now you talk about my family. I am one of 11 children. My grandfather, I never met him. He died before I was born. My paternal grandfather invested in the Black Star Liner. He bought land. Sadly, my father's siblings felt the need to sell that land. So generations of McCleans and the extended family did not get to benefit. And this is important because he indicated it did not lie in the 100-year flood line. Now, my question is, with so much land, what are the prospects for the owners? Because acquisition suggests it's privately owned, okay? Because it is privately owned and because it is such a large tract of land, who are the owners or who is the owner? I don't know if it's a single owner, if it is a several individuals or whatever. But the point is, the sum total of that land is 18.5 acres. And I will quickly share something. In the early 2000s, somewhere around 2005-06 or whatever, I became president of the city of Bridgetown. My credit union had bought 23 acres of land opposite Port St. Charles. I don't have time to go into it. An offer was made to buy that land. It was not attractive because it was one of the first things that came to my attention, that came to me as president. And some ridiculous offers were made. But one of these days, you may have me talk about that. The long and short of it, as Bajans would say, was it was bought to develop housing for the credit union members, but developments around it took place, which meant that the value of that land also went up. The credit union paid, I don't want to tell lies, I think it was either 1 point something million dollars for the land back more than 20 years ago. It was sold to a would-be developer for about $16 million. You understand? And it is a similar situation to what we are seeing in terms of these cities, the current beach land that the government owns and the one that it wants to acquire on the other side of the road. Now, I sat down, and so you asked a very important question. Who owns this land? What does compulsory acquisition mean? How much? And this is where I would become very concerned if it was my land or my family's land, or whoever land, how much will the government pay the owners for this land? And let me tell you, I don't know. I am just using a number. Beach land is expensive. But if you have that kind of development, because remember, this is near to things like it's whole town, the Gold Coast, Sandy Lane. At one point on the shore, on the coastline, we have this, that. We have the lovely upmarket shopping facility with all the fancy stores, etc. Round the corner from there, we have this historic building. So let me put it this way: if I want to go and buy a piece of land in most developments like where I'm living now, I can't remember how much I paid for the land I'm living now, but I can tell you that if I had to buy this land, if I had a vacant lot around here, the person was not going to charge me less than about $20 a square foot. So I'm just pulling that figure out of my head. It is probably less than you would pay for that if a person went to the owner and said, I want to buy this land. So if you multiply 806,217 square feet by $20, Marcia, you know how much they will go fork out to pay that person? In excess of $16 million. You want me to do the arithmetic again?
Go again.
806,217.
Right.
806,000 multiplied by 217. By $20 will give you 16. Even if it was $10, it would be a minimum of $8 million.
Wow.
So in essence, the question I would ask, Miss, and that's why I did this, because as I sat down reading it and I looked at that number, I said, but hold on a minute, was this really worth to the owner? Right? And so when as I said, I am not into real estate, but I also know something about buying a piece of land and selling a piece of land. So when you tell me that you want on the Gold Coast to build something that is of high value, you go down the street, you're going to Sandy Lane estates, all around there are high net worth properties. So my question is, so we can start to look at the legislation now. Not the legislation, the ministerial statement, and I will pose some questions to Minister DUGUID, because he is saying that, you know, they're not trying to be hiding anything. So if you go, as you scroll up,
before you go there, Miss McClean, there's a saying, and I don't know if you if you remember it. It says, I was trying to find it online, and it says when they came for this, like they were using it to talk about the Jews.
Okay, they came for so and so, and it wasn't us. So
yes,
it wasn't me, so I wasn't concerned. And then they came for XY, and you continued until they got to that person. In other words, it didn't matter. But then, of course, when it came to you and you were the lone standing, there was nobody to stand up for you.
There was nobody to stand up for you.
I will find it.
It's fine. I think I have it here. Okay. Right? What I want to say to us Barbadians, all of us, is to remember Miss Ram. Remember what happened to Miss Ram. That was her private land. The government went and said, we want that land. And we want that land to give it to a private developer. And you know what we did? You know what we did?
Nothing. We said nothing. For the most part. Most people were silent.
We went silent because it's Miss Ram. But here it is. They are ready now to come to take Black people land, that Indian family, although we don't know the owner really of Trent, but because of the area we're assuming, or it can be wherever. We see the compulsory acquisitions that's happening all over Barbados, and they're taking our land so that they can give it to these foreign investors. And it's the same thing that happened to Miss Ram. But first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist, right? Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak up because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak up because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. They are right now, as far as I saw in the newspaper, Ms. McClean, compulsory acquisition by the government, they are in debt. They are, first of all, they're paying some of these people by bonds. Your good land, you get up and they offer you bonds. A lot of these people, the government is I saw was $300 million, Ms. McClean, in debt to these people that they go and they tell them, we buying your land. Yes.
The process is long and slow. In fact, I can tell you, if I go back and look, I grew up on Black Rock Main Road, and over my lifetime from childhood, the government took off bits and pieces of land to extend. I mean, it's still a narrow highway. One is still narrow, but it was not as wide as it used to be. It was not as wide as it is now. Let me put it that way. And I can't tell. I think my father died, and they're probably owing for a piece of land. You understand? My father died in 2003, 22 years ago. You understand? So now somebody's asked the question: have land records burnt in archives? Now, looking at this statement, Marcia, and I took the time to highlight some areas of it. So, the opening statement, it says, most interestingly, and the audience can read the first paragraph. Most interestingly, there have been calls from some for the government to reveal all ALL the facts surrounding this project. And that's why when I read that and I saw the size of the land, well, you know how my mind works. I started to do some calculations. Reveal all the facts surrounding this project. In essence, given the impression that the government has been withholding information. I am not sure if they're withholding, but they haven't shared all of it because we don't know who the land belongs to. We don't know the full quantity of land. Well, I guess we can go back and see if we can find the amount. It may be in here. So he says there's nothing that could be further from the truth. It goes on then to give information on the next paragraph. It says that there were published notices in the newspaper. I got a call from a couple people when they heard the minister today in Parliament reading the ministerial statement to ask me if I was aware. I was trying to search this evening as I waited, as I listened to the show. And according to Minister DUGUID, he says we've been speaking about our plans for the redevelopment of the site of the Civic Center for a considerable period.
What?
Well, that information that I shared was January. If a liar die, I think it was January this year. The clip that Dave put up for us just now. So that I can tell you is something that's on record that I was able to find because I was checking for newspaper stories, etc. Carry it down there.
Ms. McClean, I don't want to think, but I have to. This is
no, that's fine. We gotta flesh this out.
This is the thing that gets me annoyed because my understanding and my little research tells me that not even there were people within on their team who did not know much about this this development here. So if you are people, my research told me that, and we are now listening to this Pinocchio telling us that it was discussed considerably.
Well, it might have been discussed considerably with the developers, with him. He's senior minister, infrastructure or something or the other. So he deals with this thing. So the prime minister would have been part of these negotiations. But I would ask, well, the last time I tried to get information from my MP, her response to me was thank you. So, and that was a minor matter in relative terms. So I don't know if she would be able to tell me, but it would be interesting for constituents to ask their respective members of parliament to tell them how much they have known about this project. And I use the words of the Minister DUGUID, the senior minister, how much have they known for a considerable period. So in essence, they're supposed to have been doing this. Now, he used an expression here, and that's when you say that there's work going on the site.
Mm-hmm.
Well, according to them, he said, we are well aware that you can hide and buy land, but you cannot hide and work it. It is simply not possible. We all know that's a lovely Bajan expression.
Yes.
And that is true. But my question is, there's work going on? Question, yes or no? People have said that they've seen work. I haven't been down that part of the island in the
The
last couple of
trends,
weeks.
I went down there with my camera,
Okay.
and I was with a historian that I respect, Mr.
Okay.
Morris Greenwich, and we saw that there is work going on. As you said, you can hide and buy it, but you can't hide and work it. And they are ready, demolishing. They're removing the trees. This has been going on for weeks there.
Okay.
Down there at Trents. That's Trents you're looking at. It's been happening. And the goodly historian that I believe the historian over these politicians, who said to me, Marcia, this is a flood prone zone
Well,
area.
I don't hear so.
Yes, that's what Morris Greenwich told me. And I believe Morris Greenwich. I refuse to believe somebody who said that there's no deal, and then later they put out something that a Canadian developer bought it. I will believe Morris Greenwich that this is a flood prone area. Ms. McClean, will be interested to know what zone this piece of land was in, but we don't have that.
Because you've raised another important issue, because I think we need to dissect these things. Now, this is land, it is a large, in the context of Barbados, this is a relatively large tract of land, okay, a large piece of land. It is privately owned. Now, my question is, there are several questions. One, who are the owners? Are they high net worth people? Are they ordinary working Bajans who had, who had the vision to purchase land years and years ago, and perhaps have not been able to develop it yet? Or are they sitting somewhere else on other land and decide that this will be allocated to future generations? Have they applied for permission to do something, and has it been denied? Now, you mentioned the zones outside of the issue of water and so on, because I remember there was a hotel, what's its name? It's on the seaside. My niece came, her wedding was there. And I remember it's a hotel where when you got heavy rains, the water would literally sometimes go into the lobby, because it happened while she was here. I can see a white hotel with large columns and white painted. Anyhow, the name will come back to me. But so the question is, what is the situation there? I mean, and the zoning, because you remember that after the government came into office, there was a pretty early rezoning, and it might have been in the works. I would have to go back and look, but I know that there was a rezoning. For example, the area of the Bell Waterfords.
Yes.
Zone, because they've changed from 1, 2, and whatever to A, B, and whatever else like that. I was trying to have to find the actual codes, and we can come back to this because this is a major issue.
It's a major issue.
The point is that the Zone 1 areas were those that you felt that you would probably damage the water table and so on if you got into construction. And so the question is, what was, according to the long-standing zoning arrangements for Barbados, how was this piece of land classified? Has that classification effectively changed with the new zoning categories? And is that something that might have prevented the owners from developing the area? Because if there were restrictions then, no government could normally give unless they put some fairly stringent things in place. So, when Minister DUGUID talks about people have this notion that they have not been upfront with all the information, I would put some questions to Dr. DUGUID, to the Prime Minister of Barbados, who is ultimately responsible for town and country planning. And those questions will be: one, who are the current owners of this land? 2, what was the original zoning classification for this land? If it has changed, to what it has changed, and what are the implications of that change? 3, with the compulsory acquisition, are this 7.49 hectares that I saw referred to in the clip, that we showed just now. It was when, if you look at, if anybody Googles it, they will see it underneath, written on somewhere under one of those YouTube videos that obviously was extracted from Parliament. Of that land, are they acquired? Is that all the property of these owners that they've acquired? And to what? And then of course, what are they paying? I did a calculation. As I said, I didn't pull it out of the blue. I took it in relation to a piece of land that was owned by my credit union. I can tell you that when the developers of Port St. Charles wanted to acquire it to put into their project, I was president. That did not go through because what they offered made no sense. But later on, it was sold. I was not part of that, but clearly it was sold, and I could, in another situation, give you the full details of that. But at the end of the day, the piece of land that was paid for by the credit union for, I believe it was less than $2 million, brought, in fact, I'll add this one developer wanted to pay $10 million for this land. I think we paid 1.2 million or something for it at the time, back in either late 90s or early 2000. They wanted to pay 10 million and paid the 10% deposit. And they were supposed to develop, and at that time, Prime Minister Oinatha had created something called special development areas, where investors were given incentives. They applied for the incentives, but when the application was considered, it was identified that what they wanted to do did not qualify. They came back to the credit union and said, look, we can't buy it again because we without the incentives, we can't do what we want to do, but they didn't qualify. So we ended up, they had to forfeit the 10%. And then we turned around and sold it for in excess of $15 million over 20 years ago. Or about 20 years ago. So the point I'm making, when you could, that's further north, that's in St. Peter, but it is the same kind of situation. You are looking to construct something high net worth, high in the case of those condos or whatever you call them at Port St. Charles, those residences, they're not cheap. From what I'm reading, it is not cheap. So we can probably see some more. So I say to Mr. DUGUID and to his boss, the Prime Minister of Barbados, come clean. You only give us half the story. Perhaps you may say people didn't ask, but I asking now on behalf of the loyal opposition, the members of the Barbados Labour Party who want to know, and the rest of Barbados, all of us want to know. So people, as you said, people within the bosom of the Barbados Labour Party, which is the party in power right now, they want to know too. Because some of them call me and say, we don't know nothing. I'm not talking about members of Parliament, I'm talking about members of the party and supporters of the party. Anyhow, Dave, could you probably go? I think I have something else highlighted further down.
Yeah. And then DeVere Smith and Lemuel Tull is saying something to us about the zones. So I wrote that down for me to tell you afterwards.
Okay. And it says, Mr. Speaker, the public engagement with respect to this matters dates back a full 3 years to August 31, 2021, when through its executing agency, the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., BTII, published in the Nation newspaper a public advertisement soliciting RFPs, requests for proposals. The ad set out very clearly what government's plans relating to the 3.6 acres. Now that 3.6 acres refers to the land on the seaside that is now the town center. It houses the whole town police station, the whole town library, the whole town post office, the magistrates court, as well as the offices. So they are selling 3.6 acres. Question is, how much are the taxpayers? Because this money don't belong to the government ministers. It belongs to the taxpayers. How much are they selling that for? 3.6 acres. Of course, it is on the seaside, but it would be interesting to know. So they're telling you that they're selling 3.6 acres, and according to this thing, acquiring 7.49 hectares, including making a car park. Because remember, at the end, now you're taking land to create a car park on property that could have been developed for condos for the owners. So you may not have a high-rise hotel, but you might have had some tastefully designed fit in with the whole historic, the historic nature of the area that would have brought money to the owners or could be sold, either for whatever arrangement. So in essence, you are looking to Vihoy is saying I'm in the diaspora and I can't even buy the sand on the beach. This raises another issue because it's going to send me to do some research. If I might digress a bit, you see this? I have a niece living in England. One of my late brother's daughters. Her mother's father was a fisherman who lived on a beach in St. James, because that whole area, and you can imagine this was a small chattel house. Somebody bought that property because they were expanding some other properties they had. But this is what that person did. They paid for the land, including the construction of a house that would have been just about equivalent or more than equivalent to the one they purchased. It would be interesting for me to find out how many, because that was some years ago, if my niece could find out from her aunts and uncles or whatever, what her maternal grandfather received for that. So you see, when you look at all of these things, there's a lot of questions, you know. So
look at Nina's question on the you're raising
an insurance company or a developer. Are they investing in development, or is this another entity? Now, ICBL is an insurance company. Of course, a company can have multiple business elements. But the insurance company may be owned by a parent company that is into other activities, right? But it would be interesting to delve into this some more.
Yeah, we would want to know who those other entities are.
Right.
If there are other
what
entities.
exactly is, as you say, what exactly is ICBL's interest in here? Why, and how it got involved in this particular project? I find it very interesting. So Dave, scroll down some more because I have something I believe somewhere in red. And so Marcy, I mean, we have not even gotten this. Let me pull up the thing. This thing is
wow! I'm getting something here, Miss McClean. That application for the Trent area. This information they got from someone get it from the town planning registers was only made in January 2024.
Okay.
So when he's talking about this considerable whatever, I don't know, but this application was made in January 2024.
So this is an application by the developer and the question is, what are they applying for? Because I mean, you see, and it will be interesting because the thing about town planning, that information.
Can I read what it says here? I have the application, part of the application.
Please
Thank
do.
you. Listen, I'm getting so many things in my phone, Miss McClean. The people are vigilant. You're watching from the time.
Let this drop.
You can't let it drop. Barbados, not this one. Don't let it drop, Barbados, because they're telling us, I believe they're telling lies. Formal application submitted. Applicant is the Barbados Tourism Inc. So they are applying. Yes. The agent is Bain Planning and Development, and it's a lot 4, 5, and 6 at Trent St. James. Erection description is the erection of buildings, so they use as a civic center and formation of vehicle access, and they have the coordinates and so on. So that's the formal application was made in January 2024. Thank you. I can't call names, but I have more things in my phone here. People are sending me, Miss McClean, about this situation.
What you will do, because I know that the time is gonna go. We obviously can pull that information, but let me deal with this whole question because you mentioned something, lot 4, 5, and 6. The question I would therefore ask, Mr. DUGUID and the government of Barbados, posing the question directly to the Prime Minister because she's the one who tends to speak on things. When we say 4, 5, and 6, what specifics, and this may be in the application, is this, in relation to this 7.49 hectares, would the 4, 5, and 6 lots, 4, 5, and 6 add up to 7.49 hectares? Or is this a subset of that they've applied for initially? But you just put me onto something there, Marcy, because what we need to do is to read the applications in full, and to look and see what other applications have been made, because there's talk about the physical buildings to replace, and that would constitute the town center, the offices of the police, the courts, land tax, etc., etc. There's talk about a car park as well, because obviously when you put construction, and if you have a significantly large high rise, you're going to have corresponding car park facilities, etc.
Yes.
So is that kind of detail. So don't tell me, Mr. DUGUID, that you've not been hiding. I'm not saying you have not disclosed it in full, perhaps because people did not have a full understanding of what was proposed. You could go to a town hall meeting and share some information. My question would be, what was the nature of the information? How fulsome was it? How much detail, in essence, did you provide? Were people there able to ask questions or even interested in asking? Because those town halls, was it a special town hall to deal with this, or was it part of some other information? I always say, Marcia, to explain is to expose. And what this is exposing for me is that full explanations have not been given, So.
Yeah. This is, wow. This is things are coming in. People are saying that I would love for DeVere Smith and Lemuel Tull. DeVere Smith and Lemuel Tull, can you please take my number, give me a call after the show? I need to understand about the zoning. What do you know of this area before they went and rezoned? Because we realize what's going on, because they know what they plan to do. They have now rezoned the area, and we've done this extensively, Miss McClean, on the show, where they rezone Barbados so that they can carry out the construction and the selling of the land and all these different things. That's why they sold a piece of land in St. Joseph to a developer that is now sinking because the land was not to be built on, but they rezoned. And so I want to know what the original zoning was for the Trent's land. So I think Lemuel Tull and DeVere Smith seem to be onto something. Give me a call after the show, 236-7000. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Go ahead, Miss McClean.
But I'm just going to follow up on the rezoning, because I mean, a government has to plan and so on. But when you start to look at the nature of the plans and the work that is done in terms of a legislative framework, because that is important. If you're looking to undertake, because you have a strategic plan, you have short, medium, and long-term plans, etc. And you therefore have to look and say, to what extent do our policies or legislation, etc., facilitate or hinder? But then there's also the possibility of a government taking decisions that are not necessarily in the interest of the country, that benefit a few. I mean, if you follow what's going on up north right now, you would hear people speaking of the results of certain actions taken.
Yeah, we don't want to go up there.
I know, but I'm just saying, this is what I'm saying, but the facts are there. Certain actions are taken which has certain consequences. And so my point is, when we look at the actions taken and the consequences are the consequences in the case of Barbados, benefiting the majority, because I hear people talk about, somebody made the point, and I listened to a call-in program, we need foreign direct investment. Yes, we need domestic investment as well. We need to recognize the constraints of the domestic, the individual in the domestic sphere. In other words, individuals like myself I don't have a lot of money to invest, but perhaps if there are projects where I can pool my few $1,000s with that of 50,000 Barbadians, we can have projects that benefit us, right? So my point is that when you start to look at this, the decision to rezone may have less to do with what is in the ultimate interest and benefit of this country, and more to do with preparing a playing field for investors who want to do very specific things that they could not ordinarily do. And for example, if you remember the document that we looked at last time, it was the RFP,
Yes.
where a commitment was essentially made to say, listen, if the structure, the system that we have in place, the committees that we have in place to vet this application doesn't come back with a yes, don't worry. That is not the end of the process, you know? So if you look at something and say, oh, I would love to put something over there, notwithstanding the historical significance and the incongruity of it in the context of what you have there, because you're not saying, let us put something that fits in with the history of the place, the architecture and whatever else.
Yeah.
So in order to do what I want to do, you're going to have to change these rules, notwithstanding the fact that the rules may not be maximally beneficial to the country and to the people of the country.